of the Siphnian treasury, except the Sphinx you see in the middle, which belongs to another island, the island of Naxos. I would like you to see this part of the frieze. Is the front. Up there we have the pedimental decoration. You see the frieze divided in the middle, some sitting figures debating. You see them sitting opposite to each other, 6 and 6, and debating. And here you see a scene from a battle, soldiers fighting. That brings to our mind scenes from Iliad. Please, my group, come a little bit closer. Yeah. This frieze was scanned, and with a scanner, they could see that here we have a list of names, and we know who the fighters are. And we know now which scene from Iliad exactly is. We have the gods debating and the mortals fighting. Remember, 6 were with the Trojans, 6 with the Achaeans. Now, here we have the visual depiction of a religious concept of the Greeks called anthropomorphism. Look, gods and humans are the same with one difference, and the difference is that they have double height. If they stand up, they are higher, taller than the soldiers. Now, I would like us to see just for a minute here the reconstruction of this treasury. Look here, the reconstruction of the treasury, and look these 2 columns with human shape. Tomorrow at the Acropolis of Athens, we are going to see something similar, the chariots of Athens. We have to say that although Greeks based their religion on the concept of humanization of divinity, anthropomorphism, until 7th century BC, they didn't depict their gods in human shape, considering them spiritual personalities. Until then, the symbol of divinity for the Greeks was a column or a pillar. And this is why the Greek temples are surrounded with so many columns. That is not only Greek concept. Remember the obelisks in Egypt, and remember the Bible. In the book of Genesis, we see the story of Jacob, who after he saw the lander connecting the earth with the heavens, he took the stone he used as a pillow, and after he put it upright and he made a libation on it, he said, "This pillar is the sign of God's presence here." And he called the place God's house, Bethel. Remember in the book of Exodus, the divine presence as the pillar of the cloud and the pillar of the fire. At 7th century, among the Greeks, we have developments which led to democracy, re-estimating the value of the simple human being and making the simple human being on the face of the free citizen the most precious element of the society. That is a boast ahead for the Greeks to depict their gods in a human shape. And this is why the column got the human shape. This is anthropomorphism in the visual arts, 6th century before Christ here. We continue. Now, please follow me. We are going all the way inside. Excuse me, please. Please excuse us, 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 excuse us. Please here. In this room, we have something unique. We have remains of the inner decoration of the Temple of Apollo in Delphi of 6th century BC, after the fire which destroyed the temple. And we have mainly remains of 3 statues made of gold and ivory, in the decoration of some wooden furniture. This statue remains here belong to Apollo's statue. The head, as you see, is dark because the ivory is carbonized. The golden parts are preserved better. And I would like you to see the eyes, the god of the light. The eyes are crystals, are inlaid, and there are like raised eyelashes of silver being also inlaid there. Artemis, Diana, his twin sister, possibly their mother Leto. And there we have the remains of a wooden bull, almost in natural size, covered with silver plates and golden decoration. Again, yeah, from the inner decoration of the temple, 6th century BC. I would like us now to go out and to see these 2 standing statues. Γεια σας, ευχαριστούμε. I would like us to stay here all together in this corner and to look to these 2 statues. These 2 statues are dated back to late 7th century BC, early 6th century BC, created in a Greek city of Peloponnese called Argos. And for that reason, they are called the twins of Argos. I would like you to see the strong Egyptian influence. When Greeks felt to create monumentally, had not experiences at all. So they looked around and they found that their neighbors, Egyptians, had already, centuries before them, developed monumental art. And they started copying Egyptians. Although they are made by Greek artists in a Greek city-state, the Egyptian style is bold. You see the frontality, the arms stacked on the body. You see the muscles being depicted with lines. The head, the artificial Egyptian style hair, the big almond-shaped eyes, the frozen smile, a primitive geometrical depiction of the human body. Greeks started with that, and in less than a century, they jumped into another style, while Egyptians stayed faithful on this style until the end of their ancient history. Greeks jumped into a style which is called by the Romans classical. And further in the museum, we are going to see a classical example, and we will make comparisons to see differences, okay? So we continue this way. In this room, we have pieces from the sculpture decoration of the temple of different periods. We have also a model of the place we visited, 3-dimensional, which gives an idea about the proportions of the different buildings in comparison with the temple. Look, this is the treasury of Athenians. Look, the treasury of Athenians. Look, the temple. Look, the sacred fountain of the high priestess, which, as I told you, looks like a mikvah. Treasuries all around the theater, hoteling facilities. This porch is there, hoteling facilities. And now, before the other big group comes out, I would like us to see just for some minutes, the first of the two inscriptions. The inscription we have here is the oldest found musical text, score. Do we have musicians with us? Yes, where are the musicians? Yeah, the oldest depiction of music is here, 2nd century before Christ, from the wall of the Athenian treasury. Fragments of two hymns dedicated to Apollo depicted on the wall with the musical notes. I would like you to come closer and to see the line with the lyrics. Look, the lines with the lyrics, and you see above the syllabes symbols which are slightly different, slightly different than the letters of the Greek alphabet. These symbols give two values, the value of the time and the tone. And we have this setting here because the music which is depicted here is monophonic, is chant. This is the chant of the ancient temple and the ancient theater, which was reformed after Theodosius, 5th century AD, to what we call Byzantine chant, the chant we heard in the monasteries and the basilica. The same music is reformed once more by the Pope Gregory to what we call Gregorian chant, which is the base of the classical European music.
And Brian will lead us in a Gregorian chant.
So is really, really precious, for the history of culture. We continue this way. Incense burner of 5th century BC from the private apartments of the high priestess, depicting a lady, possibly the priestess herself, holding the bowl. When was found, inside was still coal and incense. Let's go this way. Please. Come directly here. Here we have a complex of some statues depicting the prominent. I would like us to be closer to here because behind us are other groups and we have to give room to them to pass by. A prominent Thessalian family offered this as a gift to Apollo, depicting the most important members of this family. I would like you to see this statue here and to compare this statue with the two statues we saw at the other room. Look the difference. Now, my question is, come a little bit closer. Come a little bit closer. I would like you to ask, can you guess if that is a naturalistic or classical? Could you justify your guess?
Definitely looks more like a real human.
Yes, but. I assure you that all over the world and all through history, You will not find a real man having a body with the proportions of the body of this statue.
The goddess.
Why? The proportions, regardless if it's taller or shorter, we speak for the proportions. Uh, do you know what is golden ratio? No. For us to understand the classical style, this is classical style, we have to speak for 2 minutes for the beginning of philosophy. How philosophy was born. 6th century BC, Ephesus, Miletus. Thinkers there look nature and they are overwhelmed by nature. They decide that the myth is not enough to describe and interpret nature. And so they decide to study nature, and by studying nature to find the first origins. Studying nature, these thinkers discovered, number one, that nature is not compartmentalized, is not divided in pieces. From the very small, the micro, to the very big, the mega, nature is a totally unbreakable chain. Number two, in nature we have everywhere mathematical relations. Number three, all living nature, all plants, all animals, all humans, in their outer form, they all have the same tendency to fulfill the conditions of one mathematical formula, which is 2x plus 1 divided by x. Because of that, they consider this formula the expression of the life through mathematics, the expression of harmony and perfection. And they call this formula golden or divine ratio. This formula is the base of what we call today Fibonacci sequence. For you to understand better what I'm telling you, yeah, that, by that, in nature is almost, not exactly, almost equal with that, by that. Yes. Leave them. Yes, yes, leave them. Yeah, actually, we have more important things to discuss now about Nazis. Sorry, we are going to do that, but yes, let me look. The perfection goes even to Jesus, not to Nazis. Yeah, we have more important than the Nazis to say now. So that by that is about equal of that by that, about equal of that by that, all the body and the face. This is in nature. Here is actually equal. Here is depicted the ideal, the perfection. And this is why we say that we have an idealized style, not a natural style. The artist who made this statue had first to accomplish a very complicated mathematical study and then to create. Now, these people saw nature as a unique mathematical artifact, and they called nature jewel. The Greek term for jewel is cosmos. From this term, we have the term cosmetics in English. These people are considered to be the first philosophers of history. Why? Because from the visible and the taggable, they pass to the invisible and abstractive by making the question, if that is a unique mathematical artifact, a jewel, a cosmos, then who is the mathematician? Who is the artist? Who is the cosmos maker? The cosmos maker. Now, these people gave an answer to this question in two levels. Level number one, definitely the cosmos maker should be one or more than one mathematical minds. Minds that they can express themselves in a mathematical logic, parallel to the logic of the humans. What that means? Practically, that means the possibility of direct communication between divinity and the human. Level number two. How many minds? One or more than one? In art, the same reality seen from a different points of view by different minds is seen in a unique way. And every mind, perceives in its own way reality and gives the reality back in a unique way through art. And this is why every single artifact since the beginning of the art history is signed by only one artist and not more. That brought them to the conclusion that behind this artifact, cosmos, we have only one great mathematical mind. That great mathematical mind, the cosmos maker, was not identified with the gods of the myth. Was Zeus? Definitely not. Was Poseidon? Definitely not. Yeah. And so we have the creation of the purely philosophical approach to divinity as the great mathematical mind, the cosmos maker, the unknown God. A concept on which Apostle Paul based his speech to the Athenian philosophers on Mars Hill. Is the ideal depicted. Greeks depicted the ideal first presenting their gods, and later they depicted young men and women who died early as being idealized as ideal. So, although the classical art depicts the perfect, is not made to please the human eye, but to honor gods and dead people. Is the art of the temple and the cemetery. After that, Romans came. Romans were the greatest copiers of history. We thank them because we have today several actual copies of classical originals lost forever. They were the ones who started copying nature. And they created for that the naturalistic portrait, the most famous of which is the imperial portrait of the Roman time. So this is how we passed from the primitive through the classical to the naturalistic. Possibly in our mind, after the primitive comes the naturalistic, and at the end, the ideal. No, it's not the historical development of the art. From the primitive to the perfect, and then as a decline of the perfect, we have the naturalistic. Let's go now to the other room to see a naturalistic example to make comparisons with this.
Origination of math in Greek thought was Aristotle influential on that? Didn't he coin the term first mover?
Look, we start. This is what we mention now is the pre-Socratian philosophy. Aristotle and Plato are based on the Socratian philosophy. It's a totally different approach to thinking. Now, what we have here? Here we have a real person. This is a statue of the 2nd century AD, And this man is Antinos, the favorite of Hadrian. Now, make a comparison of this statue with the statue of the man we just saw. Look the head. The head of this statue is bigger. Look the arms. The arms are shorter. Yeah, we have a real person, not a mathematical composition which depicts perfection. Now, on the other room, we have the masterpiece of this museum. No, θα περιμένω αυτό το πω εγώ. Is the famous charioteer of Delphi. Why this is the masterpiece and they don't use as a masterpiece gold and ivory we saw there? The reason is that this bronze statue is one of the 4 earlier made bronze statues that survived to us, made according to the classical style. Mathematics is all mathematics. Now, depicts a young teenager the very moment when he was claimed to be a winner of the Pythian Games at the chariot races. You see tied it around his hand the diadem of the winner with the meander, the Greek key. He was a part of a bigger monument from which we have only some few pieces. Was destroyed because of an earthquake and was buried, and this is why survived. Now, another thing that I would like you to see carefully, εμείς είμαστε 16. I would like you to see the dressing code. Yeah, let's go closer, to see how this man is dressed. Yes.
What was the relationship between Hadrian and that fellow? Was it romantic or just
Very romantic.
very romantic?
Can you explain?
I think we understand.
Look there. Yeah, look there how the whole monument looked like. And now I would like you to see how this teenager is dressed. In a time when the fashion is the male body to be depicted totally naked, this man is depicted officially in the stadium, being dressed with a long garment down to the feet and his sash, his belt, not around his waist, but to the most uncomfortable place for a man to keep his belt, below the chest. For us to understand this dressing code, we have to think about Apollo. Apollo was considered to be the father god of the Greek tribe of Ions, who worshipped him as the supreme king priest and depicted him with the long, down to the feet, priestly garment. And because he was musician, playing lyre, which had a hook, they placed always the sash below his chest. People under the patronship of Apollo, to honor Apollo and to make known who was their patron god, they used in official presentations to be dressed like him. So he is dressed like the king priest. And now I would like us to open a Bible. Who can open a Bible? Yes, Revelation 1:13. Revelation 1:13. One 13.
113.
Yes, sir.
It's in the ESV. Okay, 113.
Go
In the
on.
midst of the lampstands.
Yes.
And in the midst of the lampstands, one like a son of man clothed with a long robe, with a golden sash around his chest.
Do you see similarities of the verse with the statue?
Yes.
Now you know why. Because Apostle John, first of all, writes in a place of the Greek Ionia, which had as a capital the city of Ephesus. And Ions had clearly in their mind the image of the supreme king priest like that. And so Apostle John says to them that Jesus will come back as the Messiah, but not as the poor, bare-feet rabbi of Galilee, but as the supreme king priest. This is why we have this similarity here. And now we continue to see the inscription of Gallio. Here we have a very important for the Christian apologetics inscription, and because of that, although we have 3,000 full-shaped inscriptions of international significance in the storages, was chosen to be on display. Was found in 9 pieces in a period of 10 years. Here we see the name of the Roman proconsul Gallio, Gamma Alpha, double L, I, Omega on, Galleon. And here we have the dating elements. The dating elements.
Just a couple comments. When we try to date the New Testament and the Apostle Paul in his travels, this inscription becomes very important. It's one of a couple of dating features that we have in the Acts of the Apostles. So for instance, when Aquila and Priscilla leave Rome, because Claudius issued an edict expelling all Jews from Rome because they were constantly rioting at the instigation of Chrestus. Chrestus is probably a reference to Christians. And so we know when that edict was issued, so as a consequence, we know when Aquila and Priscilla came to Corinth and joined Paul. Now, this inscription is also very important because we know that Gallio only functioned as the proconsul, that is the governor of Achaia, for 2 years. We also know, according to the Acts of the Apostles, that Paul was in Achaia, that is Corinth, for 1.5 years. So this corresponds with what we read about in the Acts of the Apostles. It gives us very little wiggle room in terms of when was Paul in Corinth. And of course, when we get to Corinth, we'll talk a little bit more about what happened during that period of time. But Paul was brought before Gallio, and charges were levied against him, and Gallio dismissed the charges. In other words, he had done nothing contrary to Roman law. Instead, this was a religious dispute among Jews, and so Gallio dismissed the charges. So again, we'll talk more about that when we get to the forum, when we get to Corinth itself. But this inscription is an important one, and it's among a collection of approximately 12 inscriptions that become kind of foundational for understanding the New Testament. It's a good one.
Yes.
Thank you.
Welcome. Also, this inscription gives information about the relation of Gallio with the Isthmian Games. Mm-hmm. Is precisely dated the arrival of Gallio at the end of May of 51. And from the records of Poseidon's temple in Corinth, we know that in the end of June of the same year, in Corinth, we have the Isthmian Games. That is a very important explanation why Apostle Paul left Athens so quickly to go to Corinth, and also gives an answer to the question of the rationalists of 19th century tents in Corinth? That question in 19th century, in the circles of the rationalists, expressed the impossible. It was equal like asking, tents in Paris, tents in London. Who is going? Yes, yes. Who is going to dwell in tents in this kind of cosmopolitan cities? Where to put the tents? Why in tents? And so the rationalists were insisting that these verses about the tents were added centuries after the Corinthian glory was forgotten. We know that during the Isthmian Games, who were organized at the Temple of Poseidon, 15 kilometers outside of the city of Corinth, spectators and athletes, instead of walking 30 kilometers every day from the city to the place of the games and back, they bought tents. They put them by the seafront, close to the temple, and the days of the games, they were living there, close to the place of the games. So today we can say, yes, tents in Corinth during the Isthmian Games. Okay, here, yeah, we accomplish, yeah, our